It's the last Wednesday of the month of June. Hello there and welcome to WADR's gender program 50/50 on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal. We're also live on Alternative Youth Radio in Lofa County, Liberia, and around the world on wadr.org. My name is Atiewin Imbila Lawson, and I am the host of the program. Here on 50/50, we discuss all things gender equality, equity, and equal opportunities for men and women, and how to promote a more women-friendly environment. This month on 50/50, we have been discussing the gender dynamics of breadwinning and breadwinners. We have heard from the public, economists and financial experts, and of course, men and women who are breadwinners or have relied on breadwinners. Here is a recap.
I remember childbirth, the cost was mine, schooling of the children, everything was new. And he happened to do nothing. It got me time that even his own clothes, I was the one buying for him.
It is not only at home or in the house that happens. Everywhere. I hold that strong belief that, look, the only time you can have your freedom is when you are economically free.
Even if the two of you are together and the two of you are making money, you should make 500 and you make 500, always scrap around the table. When I have like that, you have it all, for account. Education-wise, when she has a bachelor, you have a master. When she has a master, have a PhD.
You send them little stipend for the month, and of course, we all know what situation is now with respect to inflation. The amount it gives them for upkeep in the month, it's nothing to write home about. So it's as good as he's not even doing anything.
Yes, you have a lot of power decision making, as I said, because you are paying the piper and you call the tune. But that doesn't give you, a militant kind of approach when it comes to decision making. No, you still judge all your partner. You should try to let them understand you when it comes to certain issues.
Today, we bring you Woman of the Month, where we celebrate a woman of inspiration every last episode of the month. Who is she? How did she make it? And what can we take away? Every year, June 15th represents World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, a day set aside to raise voices against the abuse and suffering inflicted on older people. Many of these elders are women. The Guardians of Grey Masters Foundation, Ghana, is a private humanitarian foundation aimed at protecting the civil rights and providing support to elderly people who are abandoned, discriminated against, or victims of elder abuse situations. Abigail Miezah is a principal nursing officer with the Ghana Health Service, the executive director of the foundation, and our Woman of the Month. Today, we focus on Abigail's work with the elderly, what challenges she has faced, and what nuggets of wisdom she gathered over the years. I started my conversation with Abigail by asking her what inspired her to start working with the elderly.
I've been working for some time now at a hospital, and I realized that when the elderly people come in, they are admitted. Hardly would you see family members come around in their numbers as we do for young people. So nothing spoke to me actually. I made that observation. I moved from the hospital where I was working and I was transferred to another hospital. Then whilst I was there, there's this family, this woman who came to the hospital. She wasn't an elderly woman, but then she was grown because she had 6 children and the firstborn was actually a big guy. So when she was sick and she came around, the children were so much like over her. Everybody wanted to do something for mommy. And you could also see the order, between the kids themselves. They were all boys. But you could see the respect amongst them. Like, they revere the elderly one and it continues like that. It was so beautiful. So then this drew my attention. I was like, wow, this is so, how does this woman does it? So I compared, what I just observed to when the elderly people comes, the way you don't see family members. Maybe sometimes you can just see one family member come and stand around the bed and just look at the woman, and before you know it, she's gone. That's all. So that two scenarios just drew my attention to something. So then I realized that probably the youth do not really know how to handle the elderly. So probably that may be the reason that you don't see the connection. And it starts from the upbringing. And so I couldn't get the opportunity to talk to them. But I just in my mind knew that there's something she's done extraordinary to have these kids bonded like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something we'd call family goals. #family goals.
Yes. If I look at how this woman is actually brought up these kids and the way even on the hospital bed, they are all doing their best to keep mommy alive. It's so beautiful. And I don't think if this woman should be old one day, she's going to lose this kind of, care or protection. So that was how I decided to just, read more about the elderly people. So I started reading. Any elderly person who comes there, I take their contacts, I reach out to them later on, I ask them, their concerns and all that. So as I started reading more on the elderly, I realized there is a worldly selected day called the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So I read about the abuses and I realized, okay, so these fit into, what I've been observing. So that was how I started the education. That was in 2016. So my first campaign was in Kumasi. We had a big campaign just to start sensitizing people about what elder abuse is all about.
I see. When you took the numbers of these elderly persons and you got in touch with them, what kind of stories did you hear?
Some of them, they had financial issues. Some of them, they are having, the usual hypertension, diabetes, but the money issue is a problem. Sometimes when they come to the hospital, they need to buy certain medicines themselves. That is, if the government do not have all the medications and they have to take it from outside, then they have to add some money to it. That becomes a challenge for most of them. And another one, to the family members, the children are mostly not around and they hardly call. Some of them will say, oh, well, once in a while they will call me. Others will say, okay, I have the grandchildren come around sometimes. But most of the time you realize that the beauty of it all is for them to, have the family around them most of the time. And they don't get it that way.
Now, you said you started this in 2016.
Yeah.
How has the journey been? I'm sure there must have been some challenges because this is self-financed,
Yeah. It's not been easy. For the activities, I would say, as you said earlier, the passion to have that change was so strong that I will save money. The good thing is that the World Elder Abuse is a yearly, program. Mm-hmm. So I will save money towards that particular time. So when it is due, then I'll be thinking through how to have it done and all that. So every year there's something I need to do. And God being so good, the idea will come eventually. Then the monies that I have saved, then I use it to organize the program. So it's from the beginning, it was a little bit relaxed because I was funding it and I didn't have a problem with it. But then when I got to my third, fourth year, then I started asking more questions. How can I do this without, taking monies from the home and all that? There's something that has to sustain it. So that was when, the money aspect started. I realized that without the support from other people, I cannot, continue with this thing. It can't go far. Even then, I've still not yet had any strong support, financial support yet. I remember 2019, I put on social media among my friends, And some friends, knowing what I've done over the years, I think they felt compelled to help. And I was able to raise 4,000, from WhatsApp friends. And that was beautiful.
Yeah, that's impressive.
These things, you can't go to them every time, give me money. So you definitely have to find a way. So from last year, I was able to come up with caregiver training. I realized we don't have trained carers. So then I started promoting that as preparing myself towards that. And I trained one person, a degree holder. And this year, I've also trained about 6 people. But unfortunately, most of them, they are all training to go outside the country.
Is it?
Getting the training to stay here. Yeah. They want to go outside the country. So they get the training because they are not health professionals. So they get the training from me and they do the application and they leave. I have 2 people in London now who passed through my hands. But initially, that was not even the plan. I didn't even know, people would want to do that. I wanted Ghanaian carers who we can use for home care, caregiving for the elderly. So gradually, we are getting there.
Is it that we don't have like a market for caregivers for the elderly, or is it that they are paid better when they go outside the country, so there's no point in staying?
They are paid better when they go outside. You don't even see the need to pay 1,000 or 1,200 for someone to come and care for the elderly.
I'm sure even the elderly person may tell you that, give me the money, I'll take care of myself.
You see, it's possible.
If they're having the kind of financial constraints that you're referring to.
Yeah, they will even discourage you from doing that.
Yeah, I see. So with the experiences that you've had with elderly people and assisting and knowing some of their challenges, has it affected how you plan your life?
I've realized that, what goes around comes around. And then I need to give my best to my children in terms of education and teaching them good morals. I've also learned that old age is a difficult, painful moment without financial stability. So you need to invest today now that you are young. And also when you are financially sound, you can never tell if you have your children around or may not have your children around in the near future when you age. But then when you are financially sound, you can, pay for a professional to take care of you, which most of the elderly people that I visit, they wish they could have, but they don't have the money to pay, And I've also learned to build strong connections with people, both young and my peers, because you can never know, you will need their company someday as you age, just to prevent the isolation and all sorts of boredom that comes with, old age. Yeah, so these are a few things. And I've also learned that I need to be psychologically younger. People and I'm getting old, and, when they leave the government work or they hit their 60, they think that life is ended. But we have to be psychologically young. If I say psychologically young, like live your life like, you've always been a young person, the way you live your life. Don't let as you age, determine what you have to do and what you don't have to do. You have to eat well. You have to do your exercising. Keep yourself fit at all times. Those who have kept their weight very well and they are eating healthily, you realize that even though they are old, you don't even see that on them that much. And they also have money to take care of themselves, to buy the good creams, the perfumes, the right attire to wear. They don't wrinkle that much when there is that financial sustenance. But those in poverty, these things, they become weaker earlier. And I've also realized that the older adults who are very rich, they can afford anything that they want, their voices are always heard. When they talk, people listen. So that is where we need to aspire to get ourselves as young people now, that we prepare ourselves, invest, save money, so that in our old age, whether our children are there to take care of us or they are not there, our money can be able to, take good care of us, sustain us, make us live good, take good care of our bodies. And when we are coming, we'll be attractive enough for people to want to talk to us, but they will not run away from us. And when that happens, whatever you advise them or you talk to them, or because you have lived it, the young will listen to you. So the ultimate of this whole, campaign is for older people to have a voice in the near future, not older people who are vulnerable and weak, and we subject them to suppression and all sorts of abuses. Because when that happens, because the elderly people have gathered a lot of experience that they need to teach the young ones. Because of the status, you put on yourself as in the poverty state and all that, nobody even listens to the counsel that you have. But I always believe that whether it went well or it went bad, there's always an advice to give.
Yeah.
You see? So, but because of the poverty and the way they look unattractive, no one wants to listen to them.
But is it also something that has to do with changing times? Because I know that 30, 40, 50 years ago, the older you look, the wiser that you are actually perceived to be. And there was a lot of respect for the elderly. I mean, we had instances where when you're even in public transportation or in a public place, and an older person enters, even if it's a bank or wherever, people stand up for that person to have a seat because of the kind of respect that they have. But right now, we don't really see that happening, Sometimes you have to nudge people to actually stand up to give seats to the elderly people or to give them that due respect.
That's true. The old generation will always have to pass on some values to the new generation. Someone will say we have conscience as people, so we should know what is right. That is true. But there are some people too who wouldn't know until they are being taught. You see, because let's say as a child, you come to the world, you have some basic understanding of things, but not everything. So depending on the family that nurtures you, if they don't put that kind of value, to your life, or they don't add up that kind of understanding to your life, then it becomes difficult for a certain values to be passed on. I myself, I remember I witnessed that aspect a little, from where I came from. But then, what if, a particular generation decided not to, pass on that kind of values to the next generation? So then they don't see it as a big deal. And times are also changing. Knowledge is now becoming, more compared to before. But that culture that we used to have, where we get up immediately when you see an elderly person, you get up immediately and give your seat, is gone. You hardly see that these days. So, as I was saying, imagine this generation passing on such a similar information to the next generation.
Yeah.
And I pity the next generation because they are not even going to see the relevance of it at all. Until somebody comes in and maybe start putting a new kind of idea or new kind of information about how the elderly people should be treated. And I think even over the years, now I see a lot of changes than before. People are getting to now understand the elderly more than before.
Yeah. Interesting. Abigail, you as you mentioned, you are a nurse, you're a wife, you're a mother, and you have two, if I'm not wrong, two organizations that you're working on. How are you able to manage your time?
I organize programs during the weekends.
Okay.
So I start planning earlier. So when I finish, let's say, like this year, the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day was a Zoom program. So I started, planning on having a Zoom program. So I put down all the planning and those I would need. I talk to them and blah, blah. Then so before the day comes, everything is set. Then we have it done. Because this time it was even a Zoom program, it even helped me because it was less stressful.
Yeah.
But if it's like organizing a program as in, one to face program, it's the same thing. I start planning it earlier, send letters where I'm supposed to talk to the people I know I've worked with over the years and, certain roles that they've played for me. So I talk to them and they consent. So when the time is getting due, I just have to remind them, then when the time is due, we all gather and we have it done. So that's how I play it. For my kids, now they are grown, but even when they were young, I remember my first campaign, my child, one of my children, she was very young, and my younger brother was holding him, and we were all doing the campaign together. So I don't know, but I don't let certain things, bring me down. As in, when I decide to have something down, whether you are 2-year-old child or 2-month-old child, and you have to come on board, I'll find a way for you to come on board. Then we all have it done. That's me. And I think because I'm also passionate about what I'm doing, the interest to have this change, happen is very strong for me. So I don't compromise on anything.
Amazing. What word do you have for our listeners, other women who want to do as much as you're doing and even more and don't know where to start from? What would you tell them?
I think we should not allow fear, to take hold of certain decisions or actions that we want to take. You see, when you sit down, when you think about, okay, so, if I do this, what will happen? Would I be able to do this? You see, you think so much into it. Then you see the challenges that comes with it. Then you get scared. If you do that, you'll never take an action. Once you have decided to do something, just start from the little that you have.
Abigail Miezah is a principal nursing officer with the Ghana Health Service and the executive director of the Grey Masters Foundation, Ghana. And of course, she has been our Woman of the Month. My name is Atiewin Imbila Lawson, and I am your host. On behalf of myself and the production team, we say thank you for your time, and we'll see you next week. Do stay safe, and goodbye for now.